In Unbound, Adeshola's transformation from shadows of the orphanage witnessed the heart-wrenching journey of a young girl whose life in a cold orphanage is filled with dreams of love and acceptance. When she finally finds hope in being adopted by a seemingly perfect family, her joy turns into despair as she faces the painful reality of rejection when a new baby arrives. As she faces emotional neglect, jealousy from her new sister, and the painful experience of rejection, her story unfolds with resilience and strength. Just when hope seems lost, she discovers an unexpected path paved with kindness and love that leads her to redefine her destiny. Will Adeshola find the family and acceptance she yearns for, or will she remain trapped in the shadows of her past? I stood in the dim hallway, clutching my blanket like a lifeline, knowing I was about to be thrown away like yesterday's trash. "Pack your things, Adeshola," Mrs. Sheriff had said coldly, her words ringing in my ears like a death sentence. I had thought I finally found a family, but in their eyes, I was just an unwanted burden, cast aside for a newborn baby. My name is Adeshola, and this is the story of how I went from being the cherished daughter to feeling like a shadow in my own home. I was 5, stuck in a dreary orphanage. The place was huge, with faded walls and noisy floors. It reeked of dusty pages and harsh soap, nothing cozy about it. My bed was stiff, my blanket prickly, but I'd cling to it in the dark. Lying there, I'd gaze at the ceiling, dreaming someone would want me. Will I ever belong? I'd murmur, terrified it might never happen. Then one day, Hope walked in. Mr. and Mrs. Sheriff showed up. Her eyes were gentle, her voice soothing. His grin felt honest. "You're a lovely girl," Mrs. Sheriff said, bending close. I blushed and stared at my feet, too timid to meet her gaze. "Want to live with us?" Mr. Sheriff asked. My pulse raced. "Yes," I breathed, barely audible, but they caught it. They took my hand, and it was like stepping into a fairy tale. The ride to their place dragged on, quiet and tense. I gripped my tiny bag, palms damp, perched in the back seat. The Reverend Sister had told me, "They're your new family," but my head spun. What if they don't keep me? I fretted. At their house, Mrs. Sheriff crouched down, brushing my hair. "You're ours now, sweet girl," she said. My eyes sparkled, and I flung my arms around her, squeezing hard. Being wanted felt like magic. For 4 years, I was their treasure. They enrolled me in a nice school, and dressed me in cute outfits. At bedtime, Mr. Sheriff read tales of bold heroines, using goofy voices that cracked me up. "Sweet dreams, darling," he'd say, kissing my head. On weekends, I'd perch on the kitchen counter, snagging bits of dough as Mrs. Sheriff baked. "My sneaky chef," she'd chuckle. They said I brought them luck. Mr. Sheriff landed a great job after I arrived. I was wrapped in love, certain it'd last forever. One evening, we went to a fancy restaurant to toast Mr. Sheriff's success. I twirled in my favorite dress, beaming. But Mrs. Sheriff kept dashing off, looking queasy. "Are you sick, Mommy?" I asked, worried. She nodded faintly, no smile. We left early. Next morning, she took a test and cheered, "A baby's coming." She pulled me close. "A sibling for me?" I asked, bubbling with joy. "Yes, sweetheart," she said, teary. I was over the moon. I helped splash yellow paint on the baby's walls, giggling at the mess on my fingers. I chose a little stuffed bear, saying, "The baby's going to adore this." But as her belly swelled, she drifted from me. Once, I wished to feel it, like Mr. Sheriff did. "Stop it, Adeshola," she barked, swatting me away. I stood there, stunned, throat tight. What did I mess up, I wondered. Nights turned lonely. They'd coo to her belly, "We are so excited for you," while my "good night, Mommy, Daddy" faded unanswered. I'd curl up with my books, reading solo. Then came the blow, pack up, Adeshola. My stomach dropped. They shoved me into a cramped space, no bed, just a mat on a chilly floor. The baby needs your old room, Mrs. Sheriff said, avoiding my eyes. I huddled on that mat, clutching my bear, tears dripping. Mr. Sheriff mumbled, I'll fix it up, but never did. They poured cash into the baby's nook, soft curtains, a crib, while I got a rickety table and a shaky stool. Alone, I sobbed, thinking, I'm not enough anymore. Their love had slipped away. Mrs. Sheriff gave birth to Zainab, a tiny bundle everyone adored. She's adorable, right? Mrs. Sheriff gushed. I forced a nod, but inside, I vanished. They showered Zainab with cuddles and lullabies. Me? I got tasks. Make supper, Adeshola. Sweep up. Scrub the plates. My hands grew coarse, my shoulders ached, but if I paused, they'd snap, quit slacking. Once, I tried tickling Zainab's toes. She wailed, and Mrs. Sheriff stormed over. Hands off, Adeshola, she hissed. I shrank back, chest heavy. At dinner, I ate alone, hearing their giggles with Zainab. No more tales or nicknames. I felt like a ghost in their home. Babies get the spotlight, I told myself, but it never eased up. Their words sharpened. You're grown, Adeshola. Stop whining. Why aren't you perfect like Zainab? You're no help. Did we adopt you to disappoint us? Each jab stung deep. One night, I overheard them. Adeshola useful, Mr. Sheriff said. But she's not truly ours, Mrs. Sheriff replied. I bolted to my mat, tears soaking it. Asterisk not theirs. Who am I then? Asterisk I was just a leftover now. Time rolled on, and Zainab grew bratty. At 16, she dug up my adoption papers while hunting cash for herself. She stormed into my cramped corner, where I was stacking clothes. Check this out, she shouted, flinging the papers. They smacked me and dropped. Adopted, they read. So? I muttered, hands trembling. She cackled. You're not my sister. You're a pity case. From then on, she was vicious. She tossed my clothes into the rain, snickering as I savaged them, soaked and filthy. She'd spill juice and bark, wipe it up, Adeshola. Once, she drenched my mat and blamed me. Fix it, Mrs. Sheriff groaned. I scrubbed, crying, wondering, why don't they trust me? Mr. and Mrs. Sheriff egged her on, grinning like it was a game. I ached to flee. At night, I'd peer at the stars through my little window, picturing freedom. I could go, I thought. But where? No cash, no education, no one waiting. Trapped, I felt myself shrinking, disappearing bit by bit. At 24, they summoned me to the living room. A man sat there, Joseph. His shirt was frayed, hands calloused, smelling of fuel and grit. Joseph drives a taxi, Mr. Sheriff said. He needs a wife. You're it. Mrs. Sheriff beamed like it was a prize. My gut twisted, eyes watering. He's rough, broke, not for me, I thought. But they were done with me. Joseph fidgeted. She's stunning, he said. But is she okay with this? Zainab snorted. Adeshola doesn't decide. I shot up, furious. I should. I yelled, shaking. Mr. Sheriff glared. No, you don't. Wed him or get out. My knees wobbled. Out where? Joseph said, I won't force her, but Mr. Sheriff snapped, take her. Pay the bride price later. I was cornered. Okay, I choked out, voice cracking. I stuffed my clothes and bear into a worn bag. Zainab sneered, bye-bye. I trailed Joseph, heart sinking. His place was a grimy shack, a thin mat on the ground. I turned away, tears silent. Another cage, I thought. Joseph noticed my pain. Adeshola, I get it, you didn't pick this, he said gently. I won't harm you. I've got little, but I'll look out for you. His warmth spooked me, too kind to trust. I don't expect your heart, he added. I'll wait. You mean a lot to me. I dipped my head, wary. That night, I sat stiff on a creaky chair, mind racing. What if he's lying, I thought, too jittery to rest. He slid a plate of jollof rice over. Eat, he said, stepping outside. I eyed it, torn, rude to refuse my new husband. The room felt thick as I battled tears. I sank to the floor and tasted it. Warm, zesty, amazing. A flicker of hope stirred. I peeked at Joseph outside. He's simple, but he cooks, I mused. Maybe I'd try with him, I had no other path. I crawled to the mat, nerves buzzing. Will he push me? I tensed, alert. He shut the door, grabbed a cloth, and stretched out on the floor, leaving the mat mine. I watched, drowsy, doubting. He snored soon, peacefully. Was I wrong about him? I wondered as sleep pulled me under. Morning light woke me. I stretched, then froze. Joseph was out. A note and cash sat on the chair. I grabbed it, shaky, asterisk off to work, my dear. Buy what you need with this. It's small, but make do. Rice is warm in the pot. Enjoy your day. Asterisk a tear slipped, but I grinned. My dear, no one had said that kindly in ages. I clutched the note and coins, meager, but his all, given to me. I breathed deep, rattled by this care. A bucola, our loud, jolly neighbor, banged on the door. You're Joseph's girl. Hand out with me, she said. I warmed to her fast. She shared tales and wisdom, don't let old hearts block new joys. I lingered over her words, eyeing Joseph's note. The pot held warm rice, as promised. I ate alone, quiet, but calm, no taunts, no glares. Peace felt new. With his cash, I bought fruits, mangoes, oranges, and sold them out front. Folks cheered, nice work, Adeshola. Pride swelled in me. I'm making this happen, I thought. Joseph pitched in, hauling crates, joking, don't spill, dear. I'd giggle, lighter. He got me bananas, a box, and a sunshade. You're doing great, he said one evening. You've built something real. It rushed through me, no one had praised me like that. Joseph became my heaven. He'd sing goofy tunes, eyes twinkling with fun. How'd your day go, dear? He'd ask, truly listening. I'd pack up at his steps, saving him good bites. One dusk, as I packed up my fruit stall, new mangoes and oranges stacked neat, he came over, serious. Adeshola, he said, grabbing a seat. I wiped my hands. Yeah. He paused, then spoke. I want to make it official. I'll meet your parents, pay your bride price, set a date. My heart jumped. His steady care, the way he saw me, had crept in deep. This, him choosing me fully, hit hard. You mean it? I asked, quiet. He laughed. Yes, dear. I waited till you felt secure. I smiled, shy. Let's do it. He dialed Mr. Sheriff on his beat-up phone. I chewed my lip, tense, it had been ages since they spoke. Who's this? Mr. Sheriff growled. Joseph, he said, firm. About Adeshola. I'll pay her bride price. Name a day. A huff. Friday. Just come. Joseph smirked, no kindness there. We'll be there, he said. To me, Friday. I nodded, guts churning. Facing them feels odd, I admitted. He held my hand. You're not the girl they dumped. You're my wife now. his strength steadied me. Next day, he handed me a stunning gown, pricey, like a dream. "Joseph, how?" I asked, touching it, thrilled. "Saved up," he said, grinning. I squinted, but his honesty shone. "You didn't need to. I wanted you to shine Friday," he said. I hugged it, glowing. "He's more than he seems," I thought. Joseph wasn't broke. He was Joseph Thompson, son of Chief Bola Thompson, a wealthy big shot. He'd had fancy cars, top schools, but dodged gold diggers by living plain. That's how he got me. I didn't pick him for cash, I had no say. I fell for his soul, and he knew my love was real. Thursday night, he came home transformed, hair neat, suit sharp, driving a glossy car. Neighbors gawked. Ibukola hollered, "Lord, what's this?" and fetched me. I ran out, peeling fruit, and stopped cold. "Joseph," I whispered. He smiled, "Sure," taking my hand. Time for the truth. My pulse was hammered. "What's happening?" "That car," I stammered. "Inside," he said. "In our shack," he sat. I crossed my arms. "I've hidden something," he started. "Come. I'm not poor. My dad's Chief Bola Thompson, loaded." I gasped. "Rich?" He nodded. "I faked this life to find true love. You gave it, Adeshola, stayed, cared, grew with me." He grinned. "Now I give you everything." I reeled. "It's a lot, Joseph." He stood, holding my hands. "I'm still me, the guy who cooked for you, wrote notes, adores you." He touched my face. "Let's seal it tomorrow." Tears came, but his gaze held steady. "Okay," I said. He hugged me. "Thank you," he whispered. He called Mr. Sheriff, still playing poor. "Evening, sir," he said. "Who?" came the grump. "Joseph, Adeshola's man. Bride price Friday." A grunt. "Fine, bring your folks." I laughed. "That old phone." He winked. "Kept the ruse." Then he gave me the gown. "For you," he said. I gasped, clutching it. "You're amazing," I said. He chuckled. "You deserve it." Friday dawned golden. They expected a broken Joseph with pennies. Instead, sleek cars pulled up to their grand house, tall gates, shiny tiles, a garden I never fit into. I stepped out, radiant in my gown, with Joseph. His father, Chief Bola Thompson, emerged, regal. Mr. Sheriff fumbled his drink. "What's this?" he croaked. Mrs. Sheriff gaped, seeing me, strong, untouchable. "Afternoon," Joseph said coolly. "We are here for Adeshola's hand, proper." Mr. Sheriff stuttered, "Chief Bola Thompson." "Yes," the chief said, "my son." They froze. They tossed me out, but I stood tall. Zainab glared from the doorway, envy flaring as I shone, Joseph dashing beside me. They'd scorned him, now he was a prince. "Sit," Chief Owe said. They brought the bride price, money, jewels, cloth, wine, beyond their wildest guesses of my value. Mr. Sheriff shook. Mrs. Sheriff started. Zainab fumed, seeing they'd lost me. "Take care," I said, turning to Joseph. "No hate, just release." Driving away, he kissed my hand. I smiled, ready for our sweet forever. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories like this one. Your support means the world, and we are so grateful to have you on this journey with us.